Hi guys, I'm Charlie, a Charlie book fanatic. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do my October wrap up in which I'm going to talk about the books I have read in October. So I'm really excited to dive into this. I have read less than I read normally, but I don't really feel bad about that. I did some other things and I still had fun reading the books I did. I have a lot of 4-star reads in this one, so it definitely wasn't a bad reading month. So let's talk about these books. So let's talk about Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. First, this is the cover of this edition, which is a Penguin English Library classic. Northanger Abbey is about a girl called Kathleen who goes to live with these acquaintances of her parents, and they are going on a kind of vacation in Bath where they don't really know anyone, but they get introduced to society, and Kathleen meets this family and she really likes the son of the family. So she is trying to meet them everywhere, and eventually she gets invited to Northanger Abbey, which is this family's, the Tilneys estate. The synopsis of this book is very misleading, which the synopsis tells you Kathleen goes to Northanger Abbey and it turns out to be a very creepy house, and Kathleen reads a lot of gothic novels, but that's not what this book was about. Like, the creepy mention part was basically 10 pages of this entire book, somewhere in the middle of it, and the rest of it was just Kathleen being introduced to society and having problems with her best friend Isabella and her brother, and basically a lot of other things that weren't mentioned in the synopsis at all. I really liked this book, particularly because I related to Kathleen so much. Like, I think Kathleen is Jane Austen's most relatable protagonist for me. I recognize myself in the way she was constantly trying to attract the attention of the guy she liked. She was constantly following him everywhere and trying to accidentally run into him somewhere. And I really like that. I feel like she was a really relatable kind of young adult, adolescent person. And that's really what made this book for me. But honestly, the plots of Austen's novels aren't really spectacular. It's just characters put into a society and trying to seduce a man, and basically all of her books follow some sort of romance. And I like her books, I did. I think this is my new favourite after Emma. Emma is still my favourite by Jane Austen. I rated that one 4 stars, and I rated Northanger Abbey 3 stars, definitely my second favourite. The second book I'm going to be talking about is The Memory Book by Lara Avery. This book had LGBTQ+ elements in it, as well as people of colour. I rated this book 4 stars, which was such a difference from the other book I read by Lara Avery, which was A Million Miles Away. I really disliked that one. I think I rated it 2 stars. And this synopsis really spoke to me because it's about a girl who slowly loses her memories. She suffers from some form of dementia and she's just a teenager, really. And she has to come to terms with that because she has such ambitious life plan. She wants to go to college in New York, I believe, and she wants to make something of her life, and suddenly she can't because she is going to lose her memories and she's not going to be able to do anything she had planned out for herself. And that is very hard, and I think Avery really embraced that synopsis and really made something of it. I could relate to the main character so much. I also quite liked the love story. I felt like Avery really fleshed out the 2 love interests, because there was kind of a love triangle, but I didn't feel like there was a bad guy in this love triangle, which sometimes when the main character falls in love with one of the guys, the other one turns out to be an arsehole. But both love interests were very likable, I think. There was a case of cheating in this, which I didn't think the other character really deserved. Like, no one deserves being cheated on, but I felt like it was particularly unfair in this situation. Then we have Girl in Pieces by Kathleen Glasgow. I rated this one also 4 stars. This book, the synopsis is so vague, but basically about a girl who is in a rehabilitation center because she has tried to commit suicide. She used to cut herself with glass pieces, but she has to get out of this rehabilitation center because the doctors claim that she's cured, and she basically has to leave. So she goes somewhere, she tries to find a job, she meets a guy called Riley who's the cook in a restaurant she is being a dishwasher at. It's basically a shitstorm. The whole book is one dramatic event after another, but this book really made me feel, but I did have to skip over some parts, especially the parts where the main character was thinking about cutting herself or trying to hurt herself in some way or another, and parts where she actually did hurt herself. Like, that is just really triggering for me, and I can't read that kind of stuff. But aside from that, I felt like Glasgow really knew what she was writing about. Like, she wrote this book very realistically, and I think that is maybe why it was so hard for me to read. Then We Are the Ants by Shaun Hutchinson. This book has LGBTQ plus elements in it. The main character, Henry, is a gay character. I also rated this book 4 stars, and this is a sci-fi novel that follows Henry, who is being abducted by aliens, and he gets a choice to push the red button so he can save the world, and if he doesn't push the red button, the world will end, basically. And he meets this new guy, Diego, and he falls in love with him. Also, Henry's ex-boyfriend, Jesse, has committed suicide, and Henry tries to come to terms with that throughout this novel. But I felt Henry was a very whiny main character, which was why I didn't rate it 5 stars. But aside from that, I love the family aspects in this. Like, family was a huge part of the story, and I really like that. Diego wasn't my most favorite character in the book. I felt like he was kind of mysterious, and we don't really get to know him, so he wasn't really likable for me. Same with Henry. Like, I really didn't feel anything for Henry. I felt it was kind of awkward. I know it is hard if your boyfriend commits suicide, but does he really have to whine about it? This whole, I think it was 400 pages book. Then I read Gemina by Amie, Kaufman and Kristoff. This is the second book in the Illuminate Files trilogy, and this book has people of color in it. A lot of there is a group of villains in this, and they are all people of color, like black, Asian, literally everything. But I really like this. I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. I rated Illuminate 5 out of 5 stars, and in comparison to Illuminate, I really felt like Gemina wasn't up to par with it. Like, Illuminate had this magical feeling, this feeling of suspense in it, and this still had that kind of, but it wasn't as suspenseful as Illuminate. I also didn't connect to Hannah and Nick, who are the main characters in this book, as much as I did to Katie and Ezra. Like, Katie is my favorite main character in a book for the past year, I think, and Hannah and Nick really didn't have that. I didn't even really particularly like Nick, who's the male main character in this book, and Hannah was really badass, but she wasn't as badass as Katie was for me, I feel like. But still, this book was so suspenseful, and I had to read on to find out what was going to happen. And there was a plot twist in this I still didn't see happening. But what I didn't like about this specifically was that the authors used the same plot device as they did in the first book. I can't really say anything else because it will spoil it for readers of the first book. But I really didn't like how they used that plot device again. Then I read The Universe of Us, which is by Leav, who is a person of color. This is a poetry collection that I rated 5 stars. I haven't read many poetry collections, but I love Leav's simple, beautiful poetry. I actually did a review about it, so I will link it down below if you want to know my in-depth thoughts and some examples of the beautiful poems in this poetry collection that I loved. Then I read The Rose Society, which is the second book in the Young Elite trilogy. This book had LGBTQ plus elements in it. There was a, well, sort of lesbian relationship between 2 of the side characters. There really wasn't anything happening, but it was implied that they had a relationship in the past. I rated this book 4 stars. All I can say is Adelina. Like, she is amazing. I love her. I love how dark she is and how much darker she's gotten. I love everything about her. How power hungry she is. How she fights for containing that power and having that power, and just, oh, I love her. She is everything in this series. If you don't know what the Young Elite is about, the Young Elite is basically about these people that have survived the blood fever, I believe it's called, and they are called Malfedos, and they have powers. And if they have powers, they are called the Young Elites. So that is basically what it is. They have some sort of power, all different. Adelina has she has this power to create illusions, and it's so cool. It's so cool. Then I finally read Crown of Midnight, which is the second book in the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. I rated this book 3 stars, and this was a buddy read with Amie from the Blonde Archives. Well, we both thought this wasn't really spectacular. Like, nothing really happened. It was kind of a filler book. Mostly character relationships changed, but it was all so slow paced. And the end of the book was what made me rate this 3 stars. But I'm not really a huge fan of Selena. I don't really feel anything for any of the main characters. Also, my alliance has shifted to Dorian instead of Kale. I don't like Kale. I don't. And there really wasn't any sort of plot in this. Like, I was a bit bored. It was all just so slow pace, and I felt it could have gone a bit faster. The Throne of Glass series follows this assassin called Selena Sardothian. She gets back from this death camp. She gets brought to the king to participate in this competition for the prince called Dorian to become the king's champion, and after 5 years she will be released and she will finally be free. Then I read Holding Up the Universe by Jennifer Niven. This is Jennifer Niven's newest YA contemporary release, which I got this book from Social Book Co, so thank you so much. This book has LGBTQ plus elements as well as people of color in it, so well done for the diversity created in this book. And I rated this one 4 stars. This book follows 2 main characters, Libby and Jack. Libby was once dubbed America's fattest teen, and she has lost some weight since then, but she is still struggling with weight issues. And Jack suffers from face blindness, so he can't recognize anyone, not even his own family. So he recognizes people based on, not on their faces, but based on identifiers like their hair or their weight or something that just stands out about them. I have done a review on this book, so I will link that down below if you want to know more of my thoughts on this book. Then I did a reread of Kiss an Angel by Susan Elizabeth Phillips. I rated this one 4 stars. Again, genuinely, this book is so good. It's an adult romance novel that follows a girl called Daisy who gets married off to this man she doesn't know by her father, and she has to go with him. And this man owns or works in a circus, and she has to work in the circus, live in a caravan. But mind you, she always used to be rich and live in mansions and stuff, so she's kind of having a hard time adjusting. But if she stays married to him for I think 5 or 6 months, she will be released and she will have the money her father promised to her. Otherwise he would cut her free and she won't have any money. So, and I genuinely loved this. I loved how Daisy developed throughout this book, and also Alex, who is the male main character, and how they grew towards each other and how they genuinely changed. What I didn't like about this book, there was a scene in this book and it was kind of brushed over, which I didn't like, but sort of, Alex really raped Daisy in a scene. So yeah, not a 5-star read, and I really didn't like that. It was towards the end of the book, so yeah, it kind of ruined it for me because I had to close the book and think for a moment. Like, are you serious right now? Aside from that, I really loved the circus animals, the circus in general, everything about it, the acts. So good. If you're looking for a circus themed book, this is it. Then I read Into White by Randi Pink. I rated this 1 star. It was actually a DNF for me. I think I had maybe 10 pages left, but I just couldn't do it after a cliche was in this book. Like, I hated this book already, but I was set on finishing it until someone said something so cliche. I just couldn't deal with it anymore. Even if I had left just 10 pages, I just couldn't. This book has people of color in it. That's basically what this book is about. It's about racism. This girl prays one night to God. She wants to be white. She's sick of being black. And the next day she wakes up white. But her family still sees her as black, just everyone else sees her as white and they think she's a different person. Like, this whole synopsis is just so strange. Like, she tells her brother she is white to other people but just black to him, and he is like, oh yeah, of course, I believe you, let's just roll with this. And after this, she basically neglects her family. She just pushes them aside, like she's better than them now she's white. And why would you treat your family that way when you were treated that way when you were black? I genuinely didn't get it. Also, Jesus was an actual character in this, and he was talking to the main character like she was the apple of his eye, and he was saying to her, everything is going to be alright, baby girl. Yeah, he was calling her baby girl. Jesus shouldn't call people baby girl. He also shouldn't drive a car. Like, he shouldn't be an actual character. Like, why are you portraying him like this in this book? Really? Let's end on a high note. P.S. I Like You by Kasie West, rated 4 stars. I've read a lot of books by Kasie West, but I genuinely love this one. This is a YA contemporary that follows a girl who, I think it was a science class. She writes on a desk and then someone from another class answers her with a pencil and they start writing notes to each other. It's really cute. She doesn't know who the guy is. She's trying to figure that out throughout the book. She really doesn't want to know at first, but eventually she's starting to become curious, and it's so cute. It's the first YA contemporary that made me feel butterflies without there being any actual sex scenes in it, and I thought that was so special. I loved it. I requested an e-arc of By Your Side, which is the new YA contemporary release that Kasie West is coming out. I love her books. I genuinely do. I think she's becoming one of my favorite contemporary authors. Check this book out, please. It's really good, really cute, really fluffy. If you like a kind of read this. It's good. This is my October wrap up. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know down below if you've read any of these books I just talked about and what did you think about them. What did you read in October? I would love to know. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.